casino employees of Reddit. What is the worst you have ever seen someone handle a loss? A gentleman at a poker table in the 5-seat unzipped his pants and urinated on the dealer. I never caught the signal the dealer used, but it was effective, as all the guys who normally collect boxes from the tables show up out of nowhere and removed him from the table like they were taking out the trash. Well, they were. Table broke up so they could clean. Dealer showered and put on a new uniform, and I saw her on the floor again a few hours later. What a frickin' professional. I work in IT for a casino and just had to replace a phone that was ripped off the wall and thrown at one of our pit bosses over a bad loss. Someone has seen casino a little too often. Dealer for 10 years. Third day dealing. Fresh out of dealer school, I am dealing Pai Gao tiles. Asian domino game. Try to get pairs and tiles to add up as close to 9 as possible on a $25 minimum game. Guy bets $25 to $75 for a good 2 hours. He then slides his whole stack on one hand for $3k. For those who know the game, he gets Team Daibo. I pull Ji Jun. For those who do not know the game, it's like he got pocket kings and I got pocket aces. Or he pulled a 20 in blackjack and I just pulled 11 cards to make 21. The odds are astronomical. It's the only hand that beats him. He slams his fist on the table, swearing in Chinese. Chips fly everywhere and begins to shove his finger down his throat. He self-induces vomit all over my game. Close the table and pit down for cleanup. Third day dealing. Money benefits are great though. Highly recommend the industry. Made $30-40 an hour. After 45 minutes reading this thread and thinking suicide. Right. Threats. Okay. Fighting. Sure. I get to this post and just bust my butt up laughing. I read it to my wife and we laughed until we couldn't breathe. Table games dealer here. I work at a casino in New Zealand. Had a Thai woman a few months ago betting 300k a hand. She lost 12 million at my table in less than an hour. The casino then paid for her private charter jet to Melbourne and back, $70,000, so she could get more money. Not exactly sure why she had to go to Melbourne to get more money, but I was doing a 16-hour shift and she came back to my table after her trip and dropped another 15 million. Haven't had anyone close to spending that much money ever. She would also flash herself at dealers for luck and requested only young white dealers. Almost all baccarat dealers at my casino are Asian, so I had to deal to her every night for 10 days. Doesn't sound like her flashes were good luck if she lost 27 million lol. I actually did work in a casino in Las Vegas a few years back, in VIP services. One of our high rollers, who visited frequently, had a very bad gambling problem that his wife was divorcing him over. He lost everything at the tables and couldn't even afford his plane ticket back home. He threatened to go to the roof of the hotel and throw himself off. The casino felt so sorry for him. We ended up buying a ticket back home for him. Never heard from him again after that. Yes, it did actually happen. It was a brand new casino, so I am sure they didn't want to risk just ignoring his threats. Also, no one made him gamble. Vegas was not built on winners. I would imagine in a situation like that the casino rather just send the guy home. A potential suicide in their casino is not something they want to deal with. Obviously you can't just claim you lost everything and threaten to kill yourself to get a free return ticket, but in the right situation I can see how it makes sense for them. Former table dealer here. I've had drunk guys tell me I'm the worst dealer ever, I suck, etc. I would just reply have a nice day. The other people at the table were generally on my side. I've high rollers slam the table with their fist or not react at all to losing thousands. The worst and the saddest one that sticks in my mind is a guy who was around $2,000 down on blackjack. He was nice. He was tipping pretty well. I was rooting for him, as I tended to do. I knocked his tens for good luck. Then he lost a big one and just yelled frick so loud that the entire casino must have heard it. It was the kind of desperation in his voice and everything about him that told me he could not afford to lose as much as he just lost. He went to the ATM, and I rotated to another table. It was crap like that. The goddamn smoke in my face. Sleep deprivation from the late nights that led me to get out of there. A lot of other unpleasant moments too, but they all blur together. Money was nice, but it wasn't for me. Was a waitress in casino establishment 10 years ago. Suicides were not common there, but they did happen. Saddest was an Asian woman who hung herself in the toilets. She lost 20k or so from memory and was not a high roller type. 3-4 days later her car was to be towed from the underground car park. Sadly she had left her 2 fluffy dogs in there and nobody knew. Poor things were dead. The establishment then put on parking patrol officers who checked cars every few hours. They would find alive dogs and kids in there far too often. I quit after 6 months as was tired of watching miserable zombies. My girlfriend's grandfather won it big one night and then was followed home by 4 people and killed for the money. So that's the worst way I've seen someone handle a win. Worked as a security guard on night shift. The biggest losers are in a fantasy land where they don't even notice. Never actually saw addicts get worried about the future. Had a guy jump off the parking garage and die. Had another shoot his wife's lover in the garage and kill him before killing himself. Priorities. One guy was so angry at his losses that he took 200 quarters, cut them in half, taped one side, and proceeded to put them in various slot machines. Once they entered the machine, it would jam it up. Sounds like a lot of work when he could have just used washers or a cork gun or something. I used to be a casino host on cruise ships casinos. Seen many people lose their crap, but there is one woman that I'll never forget. She was gambling a lot. Towards the end of the cruise I would find her on the slot. She was crying and playing. I asked her what's wrong and she said I cannot afford to play anymore. This is all on my credit card. Talking, playing, crying at the same time. I banned her from the casino but it was already too late. I also heard stories from colleagues that used to work for a Asian cruise company that they always would keep one lifeboat half lowered because Chinese people would jump overboard after losing all of their money. You should not be able to gamble with credit. Worked in the cage before becoming a dealer. Saddest thing I used to commonly see is people getting cash advances of $15 and paying a $7.99 fee to do it. It was $7.99 to get up to $100, with $15 being the minimum. They would pay a 50% vig to piddle away $15. I guess they thought that big jackpot was just around the corner. Sad. I was security at a casino for a few years. Saddest story for me was this older gentleman, let's call him Tom for privacy's sake. Tom would frequent the casino every day, spending anywhere from $200 to $300. I had striked up lots of conversations with him because he was a regular and he was genuinely kind person who I enjoyed seeing. One day Tom comes in and I can tell he is upset. I don't make anything of it, but after seeing the guy for a few years almost every day, that day he looked really off, so a couple hours go by and I track him down and ask how's the day going? Any big wins? Just general chit chat. He starts sobbing. Hours later I see him heading out the door. I run up to him, catch him and wish him all the best and that I'll see him soon. He smiled, said thanks for the chat and thank you for the condolences and left. He booked a room in our hotel and killed himself that night. A little while later I find out through some other staff who were sort of friends of his family that he had spent all of his money, every dime that evening, spinning high limit on the machines. I'm assuming because he wanted a little enjoyment before he took his life. Still makes me upset I didn't invite him or over or do anything else because I knew he was in pain. This lady with a serious gambling problem was asked to leave as she'd been in the building for over her limit. As a protest, she peed her pants and dripped it into the machine she was at and refused to stand up or walk out. Had to be dragged with pee running down her legs, dripping onto the carpet, down an escalator and onto the street. A classy gal she is. Work casino M's and security. Horsemen commit suicide. They're all alcoholics, so at least one drinks themselves to death every year, and they like to stab each other. Drove a car into the casino wall, not the doors, the wall. The driver had a traumatic brain injury and luckily didn't injure anyone else. Left the casino, got drunk high, drove through someone's house and killed them. Suicide by shotgun in the parking lot. Punch a machine and break that giant touch screen? Those are $5,000 to replace. That could make you a felon. People OD in the bathrooms. A lot. People get so desperate they will wander up and down the aisles looking for pennies left on the machines. Haven't been in the gaming biz since the 1990s, but I've seen everything from tantrums on the floor to attacks on workers. The worst one though was some moron right out of prison with his homies lost his money on the blackjack table, took it personally, went out to his car, waited for the dealer to get off work, followed him, and then beat the living crap out of him when he stopped for gas. You can't go on Reddit and say you've seen all these casino tantrums, but only provide us one story. My friend just started at the new Catskill Resort Worldwide Casino and has already said 2 people have been kicked out for freaking on the casino floor, and 1 guy got naked in the bathroom and started washing his clothes. They have been open 2 weeks. Just wait until they hit the 30-day mark. Not a casino employee, but just the other day my father-in-law, security, watched an elderly lady lose everything at a poker table and then go around and steal a couple people's purses, wallets. When they confronted her and asked for it, she wouldn't give it to them because they weren't the police. When the police arrived, she still wouldn't give them her ID or even her name, saying they couldn't arrest her if they didn't know who she was. Needless to say, they arrested her anyways. The last thing the cop asked her was, "Are you at least going to cooperate and walk out with us to the car, or are you going to do it the hard way?" They had to carry her out and she was kicking the windows in the back of the car the entire time. She was 63. I was a security guard at a Native American casino for just under 2 years. I worked the graveyard shift the entire time before I had to leave for my own mental health due to how depressing this job could be. A few of the things I saw just in the category of losses, not violence, abuse, drugs, and prostitution, all depressing in their own way, were as follows. Elderly people who would spend their entire social security checks in one night and be forced to use food banks for the remainder of the month. Many couples getting into fights, sometimes physical, over the other giving them bad luck. Anyone who would win a lot in the first 20 minutes they were there then chasing losses after they gave it back to the house, often emptying their entire savings accounts. Lots every month losing their entire paycheck, then savings, then taking out cash advances. That of course could be done in-house, attempting to win back their lost paycheck. The worst one I ever saw was a known local business owner losing what he called over half my life's savings in under 8 hours at $2,000 a hand on a blackjack table, then attempting to strangle the dealer. I had to tackle him and put him in handcuffs. He left the property in a sheriff's car and attempted to enter the building 3 times in the next 2 weeks with intent to kill. The moral of the story: don't gamble, and if you must be very careful, gambling addiction is a serious issue. Not an employee, but my mum's friend won a slot machine jackpot. Security had to swoop in and save her because she was a very casual gambler and would use like 5 coins and leave. But that night on one of her first coins she won the jackpot. The people around her were gambling addicts and some of them had been working that machine for hours before and felt it should have been their win. So they tried to attack her for the money, but she did get it. This wouldn't have been a big win either because it was a small place, but scary stuff. Casino zombies are aggressive and territorial. They worked for that jackpot and some B came and stole it. I sat next to a guy. He drove a Pepsi truck. He said his mom died and left him $30,000. He'd never seen this much money before, so he thought he could turn it into $100,000. We're at the blackjack table. He's getting wasted and crying inconsistently BC of his mom, talking about her dying. The cocktail waitresses are cock-teasing him the whole night and he tips them $25 every drink. In 2 hours he loses everything. He has this look of nervousness on his face and said his wife is going to kill him if she finds out about this. BC, they have 4 kids and wanted to buy a house. He walked out. 10 minutes later I go to my car and see that he got a DUI. In 24 hours. His mom died. He gets a ton of money, loses it all, will probably get divorced, get a DUI, and is sitting in the back of a cop car with blue balls from the cocktail waitresses. I don't know if his mom died the same day he got the money. I didn't ask him about that. This was like 15 years ago. Some people aren't too smart. He probably heard of the FedEx executive who turned 30k into 100k in a weekend to keep the company afloat. Guy jumped from the 4th story of the parking garage. Note in his car stating that he lost everything. Savings, retirement, college funds, all of it. I watched my uncle lose everything at a blackjack table, so he proceeded to the bathroom, came out with his pants off and throw them on the table and say, "Pants please." The dealer said, "We can't take your pants, sir." He said, "Why not? You've took everything else." Needless to say, he was escorted out of the casino very upset. He has a point. Have worked in casinos for nearly a decade, and the saddest ones are the players who lose and show no aggression or sadness at all. I had a player who was down $1 million at the end of a night of roulette, and he had a completely vacant 1,000-yard stare look on his face as he quietly left. What's even sadder is when you think about it, those are the high risk people. They're calm because they've decided their fate already. Not an employee, but my girlfriend and I were at a local casino for dinner on Saturday, so we decided to take a lap around the playing floor afterwards. We are walking by the blackjack tables and notice a small crowd around a guy who had a pile of chips in front of him. After it's clear he lost it all to the dealer, he starts screaming that he couldn't lose and begins to slam his head into the table. Ends up leaving in handcuffs. Usually the casino just throws these guys in a cooling tank and lets them go. Frustration is understandable. They then ban them. Trying to steal from the casino is a different case. My uncle worked at a casino for years. He had a lot of horror stories, but the worst by far was this guy who lost a large sum of money playing cards. The second he lost, he pulled a gun out and shot himself right there at the table. I've had a few patrons lose a ton and never come back, only to find out later they drove their car into a tree or put a shotgun in their mouth. I do have a good story about the worst I saw someone handle a win. This older gentleman was a regular and a total butt, never tipped, never smiled or said hello, and was always in a foul mood. I was watching him play a 50-cent machine one night when he hit 3 jackpot symbols and won $5 grand. I went up to him and congratulated him, and I'll never forget the bemused look on his face. When the machine hits a single payout of over $1,200, the machine locks up and won't spin again until an attendant resets it. He just kept hitting the button in vain, trying to keep playing like a child whose toy stopped working. When I told him that the machine was not going to spin until we paid him his hand pay, his only words were, "Can I play this one?" and motioned to the machine next to his. I told him that he could, and he moved over and went straight back into his zombie trance. When we brought his jackpot winnings to him, he huffed and puffed because we asked him to stop playing for a minute while we counted out his $5,000. It's like the money didn't even matter. Working at a casino can be a lot of fun, but the worst thing about it is the fact that you know you're a drug dealer, and your whole job is to make sure people keep taking your product. Upvoting for the last paragraph. That old man's reaction is bizarre. The psychiatric pathology of that is staggering in its abnormality. I worked as a slot tech. Caught my casino cheating customers with a promo wheel with weights so it was impossible to win. I reported it to a lottery official on site. Nothing was done and I was fired for a BS reason a week after the wheel was removed. Figured since everyone is posting about gamblers losing, I'd post something about a casino losing. Had a roulette spinner tell me that one time a woman came in and gave the woman a check to cash out and announced, "Alright, time for me to win my rent money for the month." The dealer handed her the check back and said, "Ma'am, we are not accepting your money in this hotel. Take this check and go pay part of your rent with it and work to pay the rest. This is supposed to be a place of fun, not where you risk your life." Sounds like a decent lady. Good on her for sending them away. I work in a city with casinos. Someone killed themselves and their body was found on top of an elevator in the casino's parking structure. Suicides happen pretty often in casinos. I wasn't working at the time, but rather playing poker when a guy went super tilt after a bad hand. Anyway, he dove onto the table and thrashed around, scattering the cards and throwing everyone's chip stacks all over the place before security wrestled him out. It took a good 30+ minutes to sort everything out. That's also the day we all came to respect just how powerful casino surveillance cameras are. They were able to locate and replace every single chip exactly to where it was before his tantrum. Forget casinos. I worked at a hole-in-the-wall liquor store. Well, it was more like a scratch-off lottery store that sold liquor. Can't tell you how many times people would spend all their rent money, car payment, and grocery money on scratch-offs. They'd come back in with their kids crying, begging me for their money back after spending like $1K every day for a week. Lady, I just work here. Sorry. Also, one guy bought a ticket when I was trying to close and said for the favor that he'd split it with me if he won. Scratches it off to find it's an $80K winner. Immediately tells me he was just kidding about splitting it with me. Turns out he read it wrong because he didn't scratch it off all the way. I like to think it was a winner and got changed his mind when the guy was a douche. Nothing like sweet, immediate, justified karma. Not a casino employee, but worked at a kiosk for a very brief time when I was younger. Back then, we had some slot machines. Illegal now, to some extent. Current slot machines have tiny spins bets, like a few cents per spin. And I'd say that on any given day, we'd have around 4 or 5 regulars that would just hang around all day long and throw away their money on the machines. These people were 100% addicts. Max bets on such machines were like $5 a spin, which adds up when you're hanging around the machines 6-7 hours a day. After some of them had gambled away say $1K, they'd start to do weird crap like writing false out of service signs and hang tape on the machine while they drove home or to the bank to get more money. Their rationale was that if they had fed the machines that much, it would spit it out again very soon, and they obviously didn't want any others to win their lost money. One day, let's call her Jane, was playing the machines. She came in with a stack of cash, probably $5K or $10K, as it looked fresh, and played away 90% of it. Then tried another machine, and lost it all. She started screaming, kicking the machines, completely lost it. Turns out she'd been stealing money from her employer, and was taking out more and more, hoping to it all back. I'm not sure why they don't understand it. Slot machines are a guaranteed loss over time. It's only beneficial if when you put on some money, and by chance win, right time. If you keep putting your money on the machines, you'll lose. Current slot machines have tiny spins bets, like a few cents per spin. This is actually to feed the addiction. Instead of losing a lot in one sitting, the machines are designed to keep you in the zone for much longer to really get you into the addiction. I've seen a lot of bad behavior at tables. One guy flipped a table after a particularly bad night. One regular would tear cards in half every so often, but only on the last hand of a shoe. A fellow dealer was spit on, multiple times, in 2 separate incidents. First of 2 that happened to me personally, a regular in our high limit pit was playing 2 spots at a private blackjack table, betting between 2K 5K per spot. In less than an hour he was more than 60K down. And it wasn't the first time he'd lost that much in one visit. He asked my floor supervisor to ban him from the casino so he couldn't play anymore. But by the time the pit boss had the paperwork ready, he refused to sign it. That was the last time I dealt to him, but he continued to play at our casino throughout my time there. Second was a friend of mine. I was at an empty blackjack table on a Saturday night. Empty because every shoe was super cold. My friend walks up and wants to play. I tell him how bad the cards have been running. He doesn't care. I tell him I can't deal to him because it's against the casino rules and tell my floor I've known the guy since I was 6. Floor okays it anyway. 16 hands in a row he lost a $25 bet. Then bet his last $100 on the 17th and lost again. To this day, more than a decade later, he holds it against me and somehow believes I had something to do with it. 17 in a row is really rare. Not an employee, but a while back a former chaplain tried to light a few slot machines. a chair, and a garbage can on fire after losing $600 in 20 minutes. A week later he was still apparently so angry about it that he went to the other casino in the city and tried to light a few blackjack tables and plants on fire. This guy is the worst arsonist I've ever seen. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.